All right, I am taping this after the NBA Cup final in Vegas. The Milwaukee Bucks, they destroyed the Oklahoma City Thunder, who could not hit a shot. It happens. They looked young. They looked a little nervous. They looked like a team of young guys from Oklahoma City who had just spent the last 5 days in Las Vegas. They looked like a team that didn't realize they were at the adult table where Giannis was sitting, who proceeded to unleash holy hell on them, which he's been doing basically for over a month now. I think the last 16 games, he's something like 34, 15, and 7. He doesn't shoot threes anymore, which I think, not like he was jacking up 10 a game, but he was always shooting 3. He, would always kind of test it out. But now he's just like, I'm going to be early 2000 Shaq crossed with Spider-Man. And I think he's, as I'm recording this, he's plus 600 for MVP on FanDuel. And he's closed the gap with him and Jokic, as great as Jokic has been. Milwaukee seems like a real contender. OKC still seems like a contender. This is the league now. If you don't make threes, you're probably not going to win. If you're shooting 35 to 50 threes a game, if they're not going in, you don't have a chance, which ties into a bigger theme with what's going on with basketball right now. The last couple of weeks have been peak people asking me what's going on with the NBA. And, part of it is the ratings, because everyone loves to talk about ratings, even though the NBA just signed a $76 billion deal and the ratings don't ultimately really matter. It's an American thing more than a worldwide thing because the league's doing well globally. But when you look at big picture, what's going on with the league, LeBron and Curry, they're old. They're making desperate changes. They just changed the All-Star game again. They just did the NBA Cup in Vegas. Too many foreign stars. That's another thing you keep hearing. The schedule is too long. Been saying that for 20 years. We can't find any under 30 American superstars to carry the torch from LeBron and Curry. That's a valid thing. Too many threes. Too much sameness in the game. Can't really counter that. Too woke. The league's too woke. It's driven off a lot of possible fans. I'm not touching that one. It's an American problem, and it's not a worldwide problem because, again, worldwide, internationally, the league is doing really well. But it's an American problem. And yet, the franchise values are the highest it's ever been. They just got the highest media rights deal they've ever gotten. They have, I would say, 35 to 40 completely recognizable stars, whereas football might have 10. So it's not like this is a disaster, but this is what we do with the NBA. We love to panic. We love to talk about how things are bad. And it's a little like what SNL is like, where everybody's like, SNL's dead. SNL's done. And then guess what? SNL is going to have its 50th year. This is an American problem. And this is 8 decades of a recurring theme that I would call the NBA is in danger, that we're now living through again in December 2024. I want to go backwards. I want to go through 8 decades of NBA history to show that for the most part, this is a league that's kind of always a little bit in danger. Like football, dating back to the John Unitas beating the Giants in the late 50s, the greatest game ever played to that point. Football has always been solid. 50s, 60s, 70s, Super Bowl, the merger. It's just been going and going. The only time I ever remember people even wondering what the future of football was going to be like, and I was one of the ones wondering, was the early 2010s with concussions, Goodell. They had a bunch of stuff with Gates after it. It seemed like they had to change the way the football was being played because it was too violent. And there was a moment there where it was like, where's football? Are you going to let your sons play football? Are we going to be watching this in 20 years? And guess what? COVID happened and everybody was like, you know what? I love football. And now football feels like it's the biggest it's ever been. So you go back to the 40s and 50s, the first 15 years of the league. The league, by the time we got to 1954, the league was in complete chaos. The pace was too slow. There was no shot clock. People were just fouling each other, trying to dribble out the clock. George Mikan was dominating everything, and the league kind of sucked. And then they came up with a shot clock. That fixed some of it. It was still really violent. It was a lot like hockey back then. There wasn't nearly enough scoring. They had a big betting scandal. That was a big thing. There were barely any black players, kind of a problem. All the best black players were playing for the Harlem Globetrotters, other places, because they wouldn't let them in the league. And when you think back to where the NBA was, even in the mid-50s when Russell showed up, it was regional. Everything was in the East Coast. or like like the Pennsylvania area, the fringes of the Midwest. There were no West Coast teams. And the NFL was bigger. College football and college basketball were bigger. Baseball was bigger. Boxing, horse racing, name a sport. It was probably dead even with hockey. Get to the 60s. Russell's in there. We start finally getting some black stars. We get Elgin Baylor. We get Oscar. We get Will Chamberlain. And the 60s becomes, Wilt versus Russell, Celtics dominance. It's still not going awesome. We still don't have like a definitive, the league is fine moment. And at the same time, this is one of the most tumultuous decades in American history. There's a whole civil rights battle happening. There's assassinations all over the place. And, a league that's becoming a mostly black league had a pretty strange fit among all of that, especially as Russell is becoming one of the dominant athletes we've ever had and a huge spokesman along with Ali and Jim Brown and some others. So the league is gaining steam from an impact standpoint, but it still hasn't hit the popular piece yet. And then we have our first unicorn situation. There's 5 unicorn situations total. And I want you to remember this because we're going to tie it back in at the end. So this first unicorn situation, the 1969 finals, which turned out to be Russell's last NBA finals. He's going for his 11th title. They're underdogs against the Lakers. We finally have a California team. We have Jerry West and Will Chamberlain and Elgin Baylor, and the Lakers are favored to win Game 7 in LA. Russell beats them. And it turns out to be like the first great modern NBA Finals game that we had. The next year, the Knicks, everyone in New York is like so delighted the Knicks are finally good at basketball. Like the Celtics are gone. They have a chance to win the title. 1970 Finals, Willis gets hurt, comes back Game 7, becomes one of the most famous games in NBA history. Also, Will kind of chokes. So we have that. Kareem enters the league that same year. And then in 1971, he wins the title. He's the most ballyhooed college player to that point, to somebody that's considered to be a successor to Russell and Wilt. So he's in the league. And then the next year, 71, 72, the Lakers win 33 straight. Jerry West finally wins the title. So you have this 4-year unicorn run, all these crazy events, and it propels the league up a level. And all of a sudden now the NBA is looking really good. Well, we have to go back to the danger zone again. From 1973 to 1976, they overexpand. They make the classic mistake of they just add too many teams. The ABA has formed and is stealing a lot of the young players. So all of a sudden, the quality of the play is starting to go down. The quality of officiating is starting to go down. ABC loses the NBA to CBS because CBS kind of double crosses Roone Arledge, who's the most important sports executive probably of all time. And Roone Arledge is pissed and decides to counter-program the living shit out of the NBA, college football, college basketball, wide world of sports, the superstars competition, and he just makes it his life's mission to set the NBA backwards. There's a salary boom that happens where all of a sudden you have some guys that aren't doing that well who are making a lot of money, and everyone's really aware of it. Sidney Wicks, Pete Maravich, Spencer Haywood. So there's animosity toward basketball players for the first time. The Knicks and Lakers are done at that point by the time we get to the mid-70s. And they have the future of the league, or so we would have thought on paper. Dr. J, Julius Erving, he's in the ABA. He's not even on television. So the NBA not only is getting older with some of their older stars like, Havlicek, Jerry West, all the guys from the previous generation, Oscar. But Doc, the guy who's supposed to come in and carry the league with Kareem, is in the wrong league and not on TV. And I'm a young kid in Boston. I would have loved watching Dr. J, not on TV. So again, we're in danger. And then what happens? We have a second unicorn situation. The 1976 finals. Havlicek and Cowan's on Boston, two of the most famous guys in the league. They're playing Phoenix, triple overtime game. I was lucky enough to be at the game with my dad. I was 6 years old. I might have slept through the fourth quarter in the first 2 overtimes. But it turns out to be the greatest game in the history of the league. Celtics win the title. The NBA is back. The ABA merges into the NBA that summer. All of a sudden, we have Dr. J, David Thompson, George Gervin, George McGinnis, Moses Malone. All these guys are now in the NBA, and the NBA has 22 teams and stacked, and it's awesome. And that leads to Kareem's already in LA. Walton's on the Blazers. The Blazers take off that year. And it's a late run. Second half of the year into the playoffs, they beat Kareem. They end up beating Dr. J in Philly in the finals. Bill Walton Turns out maybe he's the next Bill Russell. Everybody's in love with the guy. He's got the beard. He takes the jersey off after they win. So this is unicorn number 2 situation. 76 finals, 77 finals. Basketball seems like it's in the best shape that it's been in maybe ever. What happens? We go back to the danger zone, the late 70s into the early 80s. Walton gets hurt the next year, never really recovers. And it would be like if Wembanyama won the title this year and then just got hurt and we didn't see him for 6 years. The cocaine era happens. And the cocaine, that's hitting all the sports. That's hitting Hollywood. That's hitting the comedy circles. Cocaine starts to wipe out pretty much everybody starting in 1978. And it does some real damage to the NBA and cuts short some careers, changes the course of some careers. Some young stars that they're counting on go sideways. So you have that. You have the Kermit Washington punch in late 1977 in that 77-78 season where he punches Rudy Tomjanovich, a white guy, and all this ugly stuff surfaces up. All the casual racism that people felt toward, a mostly black league being catered and sold to mostly white fans, that all pops up. And this crazy 2-year run of you can go back and read some of the old Sports Illustrated things about the league's too black, that it's never going to work. And it's just, it fucking goes crazy in a bad way, in a way that even as a little kid, I was kind of noticing the way they were talking about it. It was not great. We had the dumb owner apex back then. This is when basically anybody could buy an NBA team. And you just had these dumb owners, like the Celtics for a year had John White Brown. He was terrible. Just dumb owners making dumb trades, not trying to build anything. So the teams are just in constant chaos. You have the dumb commissioner apex too, Larry O'Brien, who's awful. David Stern comes in and looks 100 times better compared to him a few years later. You have CBS fucking up the playoffs, either do tape delaying the primetime games or making the NBA schedule weekend playoff games so that you're playing game 3 and game 4 of a series back-to-back days. So they could care less about the health of the players. They really didn't want to show the NBA because it wasn't doing that well. So you had that. You had college hoops, the NFL, baseball, NHL, boxing, college football, and horse racing are all more popular in the NBA by the end of the 70s because they have the Washington-Seattle finals twice in a row, which are great basketball finals, but not exactly a marquee finals. And all of it is eventually captured in Breaks of the Game by David Halberstam, the best sports book of all time. That comes out, I think, in 82. But the NBA, the Lakers play the Sixers, I think, in 82 and 83. And some of those games weren't even on live television. They weren't on until 11:30 on the East Coast. That's how bad it was for the NBA. So I'm going to say a little more dangerous than right now. Leading to our third unicorn situation, the 1984 finals. We had Bird and Magic in the league for a while. They don't play against each other in the finals, even though they have this great rivalry dating back to 79 when college basketball was way bigger than the NBA. Bird and Magic play each other during the same year. CBS is like, you know what? We're showing all of these finals games live now. We're going to show them in prime time. We're going to really try to get behind the league. And they get Bird and Magic. They get a 7-game series. They get one of the great series in the history of the league. That happens. They have Michael Jordan on the Olympic team that summer coming into the league on the Chicago Bulls, the third biggest market they have. MJ happens. And then we're off. We get David Stern. We get cable. We have USA and ESPN by that point. So as a little kid on the East Coast, all of a sudden I couldn't see George Gervin and David Thompson or whoever in the 70s unless I went to the Boston Garden to see them. Now in the 80s, I can just pop on cable. I can see Dominique Wilkins. I can see Isaiah Thomas. I can see Adrian Dantley. Whoever I want, I can see. I can see Magic Johnson on the other coast. So that's happening. They're figuring out how to brand stuff better. And once MJ really gets going with the Bulls, the NBA takes off. We get the NBA fantastic commercials. And we have this incredible unicorn 15-year run. Bird versus Magic. Jordan, 6 titles. We have the Riley Knicks and Hakeem and Barkley and Isaiah's Pistons, the Blazers, Sean Kemp and GP, Stockton and Malone. I didn't really like watching them that much, but I'm going to throw them in anyway. On and on and on it went. And it was the watershed time to ever be a basketball fan. It was the most talent concentrated into one area. Everyone's playing super hard. The league was the most fun, I would say, in the late 80s, early 90s. And it just keeps, Jordan retires. They're fine because the Knicks make it that year. Jordan comes back. It becomes the biggest story, really, of anything other than maybe the decision with LeBron. Jordan wins 3 straight titles in a row in the Bulls. including the 72 win Bulls, and the NBA just goes, it's just arrow pointing up. All of it's captured in The Last Dance. Well, what happens? We hit the danger zone again. MJ retires. Right after he retires, lockout. No basketball for 6-7 months. People are pissed because these guys are making so much money. The young guys are able to switch teams 3-4 years. Everyone starts getting mad. All the ugly casual racism stuff starts like percolating a little bit again. It's like, has hip hop culture infected the NBA? Stern puts in a dress code. Wasn't great. Not great times. Well, what happens? We don't have an MJ successor. Grant Hill, KG, Tim Duncan, C-Web, Iverson, Shaq. Weren't MJ successors. And then 2000, Kobe and Shaq. So we have Shaq and Kobe together. We kind of know something's happening with Kobe. And in the 2000 season, that's unicorn number 4. Shaq and Kobe. Shaq fouls out of game 4 of the finals. Kobe comes in, puts on the Superman cape, wins the game. They end up winning the title. This is after they escaped against Portland the previous round. And now we have this crazy Kobe and Shaq run. That was like real drama, real theater. They were great. The 2001 Laker team is probably one of the 2 best teams of the century. As of that's happening, a phenom named LeBron James is in high school. He's going to be in the 2003 draft with Carmelo and some others. And the league looks great from 2000 to 2003. That is our unicorn number 4 moment. Shaq and Kobe ending up on the same team in Los Angeles, California on the Lakers. Couldn't have worked out better. Well, we immediately hit the danger zone again in 2003. We have the Kobe incident and the trial. Not great. We have the 2003 and 2004 finals, which were rock fights, and ESPN Classic and NBA TV Hardwood Classics, I think, are banned from showing any of those games. Defense got too good. The game got too physical. We had Kobe and Shaq falling apart. The game slowed down. The pace slowed down. To the point that after the 2004 season, they had to add all these rule changes and these other, legal defense stuff just to try to quicken stuff up again. And you had a league that was built around Tim Duncan. I think he's one of the 7 best players of all time. Didn't really resonate with people like he should have. Dirk Nowitzki, German. KG, mostly stuck on bad teams except for 04. C-Web, Dwayne Wade, angry Kobe, young LeBron on crappy Cavs teams. It was grim. And I if you remember, like when I was writing for Page 2, back when my fingers worked, I used to have a joke about how I was one of the last 20 NBA fans. And the joke was that the NBA kind of sucks now, but I still love it. And this was a gimmick that I would do because we were in real danger with the league. Culminating in the 06 finals where we had the referee controversy with Dallas and Miami. And we've all agreed not to talk about the 2006 finals. Then the 2007 finals where the East was like in such bad shape. LeBron ends up making the finals. He's a heroic performance by him with just an awful Cavs team that I think would be a 14 seed if we had them in the season now. So things are grim. Things are bad. There's a lot of what's wrong. You can go back and search for my column archives, multiple what's wrong with the NBA column. What happens? Well, unicorn number 5 situation happens, 2008 to 2018. In short order, we get the probably illegal Pau Gasol trade where the Lakers just steal Pau Gasol and nobody even else knows he's available. Thanks again to Chris Wallace for creating the second mini Kobe dynasty. Gasol and the Lakers. Now the Lakers are a contender. KG's already been traded to Boston. Now Boston's a contender. All of a sudden we have Celtics Lakers in 2008 and we're off, baby. We're back. We have Kobe loses in 08 but wins the next 2 finals. Celtics are in there in 2010 against them. After 2010, LeBron, who can't get it done with Cleveland, the decision. Probably the single biggest off-the-court NBA moment that we've had other than MJ retiring. The decision. He changes teams. People lose their fucking minds. Goes to Miami. All of a sudden, we have Miami LeBron. We have aging but still fun Kobe on a contender Lakers. Aging but still fun Celtics. A bunch of great young players coming up like KD and Russ on the Thunder. And It's just going and going and going. And then what happens? Curry and the Warriors show up. Curry reinvents basketball. He's hitting threes from all over the place with Klay Thompson. They have their little run. This goes all the way through 2019. 2019 finals is the tipping point. Durant gets hurt. Klay gets hurt. That Warriors dynasty ends. Durant, we lose a year of his prime. We lose a whole year of Curry's prime with the Warriors, really 2 years. But that was our last unicorn stretch, 2008 to 2019. And then what happens? We're in danger again starting in 2020. The bubble. The bubble ends this really fun NBA season we're having where LeBron and the Lakers, Kawhi and the Clippers, Giannis is on his way up, Jokic is on his way up, Embiid's on his way up, Tatum and Brown are on Boston, and it just feels like, and then boom, the bubble, weird. The player movement becomes out of control. It just feels like every year guys are switching teams. It starts to feel a little more like NBA 2K. Load management becomes a bigger story. The schedule's too long. We all hate it. They won't do anything about it. The 3-point stuff just gets worse and worse and worse. Now we have the Celtics shooting over 53s. So there's a sameness to a lot of the games that I think a lot of people are down on. I would encourage people to go back and watch some of the terrible post-ups in the 80s and 90s and see if you still don't like threes. But there's definitely a Curry effect with how the game's being played. The foreign stars are now all the best under 30 guys. And this is a league that, dating back to Hakeem, who is just one of the best players I've ever seen in my life, but he wasn't from here. And he never resonated like an American guy. Now we have Jokic and Giannis and Luka and Embiid and Wemby and maybe even SGA if he can bounce back and from a terrible NBA Cup and become, a real guy this year and maybe take OKC to the finals. Those are six guys that aren't from here. And we're talking about when is the next star. This is a league that's so beholden to the LeBron, Curry, Durant era and seems so afraid to pass the torch to the under 30 guys. You can see it with the TV schedule. OKC is on TV this year less than the Lakers, less than the Warriors, because they keep feeding us LeBron and Curry. You watch ESPN, you watch, all the content they're doing on First Take and on the NBA Today. It's always Lakers, Lakers, Lakers. Like they're playing the hits, and it's coming at the expense of trying to build up these new stars, which we even saw in the Olympics. I love the Olympics. I thought LeBron and Curry and Durant, watching those guys like fend off Serbia and France, like that was amazing stuff. But it did come at the expense of the next generation of guys who kind of needed a moment like that, And I think this league is, if there's a criticism that I think's valid, it's pushing these guys that have kind of already had their moment, that were already great, and trying to extract more great moments from them when there's probably not a lot of greatness left, versus rolling the dice with some of the new guys, which is, I see why they do it, but at the same time, like they gotta be pushing the younger guys more. And at the same time, like you have somebody like Edwards, who is such a unique and original guy. And then he shows up for this season, he's shooting 12 threes a game, and he's starting to look like everybody else I'm watching. So there's a sameness to the new guys. And then you have somebody like Jokic, who is really Bird and Magic trapped in a Serbian 7-foot doughy body. But he's not from here. And for whatever reason, he doesn't cook with fans. I don't think the way he should. So my point, big picture, is that we've had 5 unicorn moments. And now we're due for a 6th. And this league has been around for 8 decades. And every time a unicorn moment, we're not even in the middle of one, or we don't have one coming, everybody thinks the NBA is in trouble. They're in danger. It's over. This is just the DNA of the league. And here's what's going to happen. There's going to be some new player that comes in, some new team, some new event. It's going to shift this. And all of a sudden we'll be like, oh, it's like when we did the Vince McMahon documentary, Triple H had this great quote about when he was talking about when Stone Cold and Vince and that whole era. And he was like, I felt it's like an earthquake. It's like, did I feel that? Did something move? And you just kind of know from a narrative standpoint, something has moved. And that's what the NBA needs right now. I don't know what that's going to be, but I'm going to bet on the 80-year history of the league and the fact that internationally it's fine. This is an American problem. People are losing interest in America because they can, watch fourth quarters of games on the NBA app. They can follow it, like what Derek Thompson said on my podcast. You can follow the league without really watching it. So the ratings are down, but I'm not sure the interest is down. What they're missing, ironically, is what women's college basketball with the WNBA had, where Caitlin became somebody that people just wanted to watch. They just wanted to watch her games. They didn't care who she was playing. They didn't care what the stakes were. They wanted to watch her. And that's why I think you could really make the case she's more valuable than anyone the NBA has, because she's the only must-watch basketball player right now other than the old guys in the NBA. So they have to figure out what is their unicorn moment. But my prediction is that it's the NBA. It's been 80 years. It's looked bleak before. They always bounce back. This is the league we have chosen.